Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 48. It's a developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. Oof.
Made it.
Made it. I feel like when it gets to iterating on saying all the specific platforms, I'm gonna don't slip up.
Yeah. Apple just keeps adding platforms.
Dang it, Apple! Enough. Too many platforms. Thankfully, we're only focused on one this time, or at least our attention is focused on one these days in terms of our side project. And that would be the visionOS one. Of course, in our usual, MO, we always go after the hottest things. That's not exactly baked through.
Yeah, every time we do this recording, and we're not even doing it on the normal day, every time there's a new Xcode update, like right before or the
Wait,
like I just updated Xcode before this.
Wait,
the latest beta.
We are on Xcode beta 6.
Yeah, beta 6.
Oh my goodness!
See, every time.
Why didn't nobody tell me?
I'm telling you now,
Aaron. Why didn't you tell me this?
Because it just happened, I think, today. So but every time there's a new beta, and I have to go in there and see what's broken and what's working.
My goodness!
So some of our complaints may already be old news.
Oh, jeez. Well, this is actually literally breaking news for me. So, I like how it says, okay, the one resolved issue is fixed while previewing SwiftUI views in SwiftUI playgrounds. Okay. All right. The preview build can fail with an error mentioning a failure. Board module, blah, blah, blah. And then as for known issues, long laundry list.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing in between releases.
I mean, not terribly known. No. Yep. Nope. Yep. Yeah. It's a little all over the place, actually. Yeah. But more known issues than, say, resolved issues. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think the visionOS issues are gonna be here for a while past Xcode 15 official launch.
That's fair. I mean, honestly, we were given a lot to work with to begin with, and I get the sense, based on rumors and or some implications, that maybe this is just the tip of the iceberg. Maybe there's more to expect than just what we're seeing in the simulator. I would assume that it's going to be pretty nasty and gnarly for a while with visionOS. And probably up to... So one of the interesting rumors is that people are hinting, I say people, I mean more like Mac rumors and such, maybe John Gruber. I'm throwing out names, but honestly, I'm forgetting offhand. But it feels like there's been something implied where this thing is coming out earlier than what we think of. We've talked about before, where we were just thinking oh yeah, it's probably going to come out in maybe March, maybe April. Certainly not January, February, right? Like when they say it's going to come out early next year, I'm like, yeah, early can be anywhere from January to May as far as you're concerned, Apple.
Yeah.
And I think it was there was a quarterly report from Tim Cook was oh yeah, definitely early. So I don't know I don't know how to read that, to be fair.
A New Year's gift for yourself, visionPro.
If look,
we don't New Year's 2024 or 2025.
Yeah.
Early next year, Aaron.
Well, I know I want to get my hands on it as soon as possible, but who knows when they release it and then when you're actually going to be able to get one.
Did you guys apply for a dev kit?
No, it's just based on how tight they're being with it. It's you must keep it in a locked vault and nobody else is allowed to touch it. It's no, we're not getting it.
We joked about this, right? yeah, we joked about this, right? Like, we don't even know. Like, I'm sure they have no problems with going like, okay, let's see what you're doing when you're like with all the eye sensors, right? We're going to track what you're doing, even though technically we don't allow you to do the same. So I'm sure that they have like their own version of Find My on that device, so they know exactly where it is.
Maybe just tape an AirTag to it.
It's like it can't leave the location from where it's shipped to, and all this.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
What was the other one? Is like cannot be in the presence, cannot show it to anybody else. I think was one.
Yeah,
of them? Like,
nobody outside of your developer team can look at it.
Right.
It's like if you look at the restrictions on the application, it's pretty strict.
Yeah. Which I'm honestly okay with. You know what's hilarious is like the people who actually can follow these rules with relative ease is somebody like a Curtis of getslopes.com, right? Like it's like because it's just him.
Just be his house will be
just be in his
location,
house, you know, and maybe the dog. I mean, if they're gonna ding him for like his dog or
can you take it out of the location for any reason? Probably not, right?
Apparently not.
So you can't test it on the slopes there. Not that you probably would. I just still want to see some mad lad going out there on the slopes with that thing on, just probably immediately crashing afterwards. But it would be a good photo.
It's going to happen regardless.
It is. People are going to take this thing out into the real world, despite all the warnings, despite how stupid it is, and they're going to wear this thing in like inappropriate locations, and we're going to see it all over social media, and it's going to be hilarious. Hopefully, no one gets too hurt.
One of the things that'd be interesting from the dev kit perspective, right? Like talking about who they are willing to give this out to, right? Let's just say they give it to somebody by accident, like they gave it to somebody that they weren't supposed to give it to, and that person was like an influencer. And of course, this influencer goes, "Hey, look at me! Look at what I'm doing with this thing!" Right? What is the penalty?
I don't know. The Apple stormtroopers come and take all of your iPhones. Like,
I mean,
I don't know what can they do. They could probably sue you.
Right. Like that's what I was wondering. It's like how severe is the penalty? Like they can remove your dev account.
Yeah,
right?
remove your dev account is probably a big one.
Certainly ban you for like that's
the real
squeeze.
That's the stick right there. I think that like Apple always has the option to say nope, you can't publish anymore because you violated this. As is their right. If you agree to these terms when you get this thing. So don't be silly. Read the fine print and follow it to the best of your ability, even if it does seem ridiculous.
We do a lot of side projects here, and for this particular version, with this particular OS, we have very little context of how best to sort of engage with the SDK.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been doing a lot of mini experiments, just basic hello worlds and just seeing what you can do. And I know last time, Steve, you actually made some really good progress in terms of like just sort of having a view.
I made a little toy demo. Yeah, a little toy demo where I loaded an image from the asset catalog in that case, that first one, and I just applied a little CI filter to it, pixelated, and I made a button and got it all to work, and it was buggy. And then I updated it for this time. So I tried using the photo picker, like the new Swift UI photo picker. So you can, and I dropped some images on the simulator, so you can load them that way. And then I tried to move the buttons for doing this stuff into an ornament. I couldn't quite get that to look right, but I did do that. And I was originally trying to get what I really wanted to do was get like a picker. I wanted like images in another window is what I want, because I want to explore different ways of dealing with photos in this environment. What I wanted was like, I was imagining kind of like a pile of images or a screen of images, and then I could just grab them and like bring them into my workspace to edit. Not that that's necessarily the best way of doing it, but I wanted to try it. Like if I'm imagining I'm sitting there and I just kind of like physically want to grab something, or I want to look at it and like pinch and move it over or something. But I could not, here's a stupid thing, I could not figure out how to get it to just open two windows on launch and have them in different positions. Like when I would open the photo picker, it and I read in the documentation somewhere, it said it was like visionOS will open things where you're looking. So It's like, so I think that's why it's doing that, because I'm looking, the camera is, is looking right at the main app window. And then if I try to open like the picker, for instance, it just pops it right in front of it on top of it. And I'm like, I really wanted to do is I wanted to open two windows, and I tried different scenes. I couldn't get anything to work. It's like I wanted two scenes or two windows open. One was the main edit window, and one was like a picker window of some sort. And I could not figure out how to do that, even though I feel like it should be possible. It's probably something dumb. This kind of goes to the thing of visionOS is weird, and not all the frameworks and things we're used to work quite right. And then there's a really big differences between the preview and running in the simulator. And then the simulator itself is really buggy. Like I would have, as I would be doing a run loop of this thing, progressively the image would just disappear. Like the background would disappear. At some point, it was just kind of like a blackness, and things would just stop working. And I would just have to kill the simulator. And that was better than in the preview, which doesn't even half the time render anything remotely the way it looks like. So it's kind of frustrating. It's
try doing that on an Intel based Mac.
Oh no! At least I didn't have fans going off or anything.
Oh my goodness, it was so bad. It's just like a hello world. Like the diorama is a really good example of the diorama sample app, which is basically like a 3D I don't know what you would call it, diorama, I guess, and it has like the map of Yosemite.
Does that work now?
See, the thing is, when you open it up in on an Intel based Mac, the preview shows up fine, and like the window shows up fine, but the 3D model, which is supposed to actually show up when you toggle it on, takes forever to come up, and like it'll come up eventually, but it's not like, you can tell it's like, okay, this, if I had a real like visionOS thing, this would be better. Like this would come out, this would pop in a little easier or a little smoother. As of right now, it's just a sloth, and I can't tell honestly if it truly is because it's an Intel, or because it's almost just as slow on M2, or for me it's an M1 Pro.
It is. I mean, maybe what you're doing, just using the regular Windows, the simulator runs quite fast on my machine. Yeah. But I've been trying to get 3D objects in there. But the whole experience is just so janky. But does that demo that you tried, does that run on the latest betas, or beta 5 anyway? It's the last one I used.
It did. Yeah.
Because I hadn't tried it yet. I had updated the beta 5, because this is what I was saying. It keeps updating every time I go to do something. I updated beta 5, and then I was messing around with my thing, and then we had to record, so I didn't, like a couple days later. So I didn't have much time. But for a long time, we couldn't even run these things. So that's good to know. I'm going to try to run some of these demos, because I didn't want to run them in beta 2.
The thing that might be the most relevant for you is the destination
video one,
right? And there's Hello World, Hello World and the diorama, but the Hello World one might be the other one that
I was worthy of it. I've been looking at their documentation, even if I didn't have them running, and I was trying to do some of the stuff that's in them, and it's just not working. The documentation just doesn't give me enough context sometimes. Like they'll give you a little tiny snippet. You're like, okay, but where does this one line of code go? like you know what I mean? When you look at sometimes you look at documentation, you're like, where does this line of code you're telling me go? What class, what struct, what screen, like where? But it's the documentation is pretty helpful though. But I saw in the documentation, I think for destination video, they have what I want to do. It looks like they have what I want to do, which is like had two windows next to each other, like lined up the way I want them to do. I want them in my field of view, but I want them lined up so one's kind of like curved at a side and then one's straight in front of me, because I want to have a like collection spot and then the edit spot, maybe even then a third location on the right, which is like finished. So maybe I could like I play with a workflow. I can say words. Where you can take the photos from the one pile, edit them, and then like it can go over to the other grid, so you can keep a nice separation of what state they're in.
Are you trying to like mimic a Kanban board?
Oh yeah, I
in
could do a
3D.
Kanban board. Yeah, with whole windows though.
With whole windows, you can just be like, we should make VR AR Jira.
We should. I know we're back to AR Jira, but Kanban boards were about modeling a real world process. So it makes sense that my real world process would be similar to what you'd imagine a Kanban board would model, because that's how they started. Going a process of putting stuff together in different stages. So I don't know. This is what I'm thinking. I'm just trying to explore different ideas. Like, how would I interact with if I'm a professional photographer? This is my view right now on it. If I'm a professional photographer, and like, why do I want this thing? Is it going to help me do my job? Because because it has these great screens? Is it like a better experience? What's the workflow look like if I'm trying to edit things this way? Is it more ergonomic because you don't have to use your keyboard and mouse potentially as much? I don't know. These are questions, and I'm trying to build little toy experiences to explore.
You had said before the way your original like Lightroom flow.
Yeah.
A lot of the photos that you import from, I guess, the photo app, right?
For the card.
How does that work?
I import usually from. I mean, I use it from a card, from a file. Like, Lightroom is old school. You'd say like, where on the file system do you want these? And then
that's kind of fascinating in that sense, right? Because like, this is the experience feels like a Mac desktop in a weird way, as bizarre as that's going to sound. Like, you have like these window panes that reflect kind of similar to like how you interact with like traditional Mac windows, right?
Right.
But the storage, how you interact with storage is like iOS, where you would have to open up, say, the photo picker and just go through that, very, for lack of a better word, very basic UI.
Now, what I'm doing though is my Lightroom is Lightroom Classic. That's what I use. There's also an updated Lightroom, which is cloud based, and all of your stuff, will be on all your devices if you pay for enough storage. The problem with the cloud one is like, nobody can afford to put all their stuff in there, so I find it frustrating, and I try not to use Adobe's cloud stuff because I don't have a lot of space, and I find the whole experience frustrating when I'm trying to use Classic. So again, that's another thing to bring up. If you're like using an iPad for photos, and as some photographers do, you can do some impressive editing, like on the go or maybe at a location. I don't know if anybody would seriously do all of their photo editing on an iPad, because the file management is the main problem there. If you have a whole bunch of photos. I have in the past, though, done things on my iPhone where I took photos from my camera, SD card reader, plugged it into my phone, uploaded them onto the phone, and then imported them into the Lightroom app, and then did some edits, and then published them to like social media or something. So I did that a few years ago at a outdoor music festival, and you know what? It was a little at the time a little slow, but kind of worked.
Oh, interesting. So, maybe a silly question. There isn't, aside from the power supply, there isn't any I/O ports, right?
I don't think so. I don't know of one.
Right. I don't remember hearing that. Right. So there's no like lightning cable or USB-C cable, right, that you can connect it to that would allow you to connect a drive,
like a dongle or something. Yeah.
That's
a good point, because, well, at the time and even now, because we don't have the new Pro ones.
Oh, if you had a splitter, right, or like, say, with the battery pack, if the battery pack is detachable from the battery pack side, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Theoretically, you can daisy chain.
But is it a data? I mean,
because it's an M2, right? Like, all that stuff is in the chip. So in theory, in the SoC, right? So in theory, it has storage, and it should have if they're mass producing this, right? They're just going to do what the lowest rent M2 would be, right? Which is the 256 gig one on the MacBook Air.
Which is what I had on my phone at the time that I was doing the photo editing from my camera, and it was like 25 meg files at the time. It wasn't Probably around 25 meg, 30 meg.
Potentially, assuming that you can detach the battery pack, right, and plug in other things, because I guess you would have to assume that because you need that same cable to plug into your Mac or your so it has to be like a USB-C.
There has to be a way of plugging. I mean, is there a way to plug the thing into your Mac for development?
Yeah, I would assume so, right? Like, why wouldn't there be?
Well, it could. I don't think there
could be all wireless.
Yeah, it could be fully wireless, like the watch.
And AirDrop's pretty fast. I mean, you could import files potentially wirelessly, but it's a little more janky to do that, and it doesn't help.
And it doesn't. The only connector is the power thing, and I think it's like a magnetic wireless thing. So I don't think it's actually like a.
Well, there's a port on the back of the. There's a USB-C port, I think, on the battery pack.
That's
on the battery, and the question is
any direct data thing.
Yeah, is there a data? Is there a data pair that goes on that wire up to the headset or not?
I thought it was like the watch. It's like a locking version of the watch wireless,
which is only power based.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair and really annoying, Apple TV.
They took out the port
nowadays. Yeah, is pretty much all wireless. You have to wirelessly install it.
It is fast enough. For certain workflows, it's interesting to think about how to do it though. So with photos, modern cameras, like professional cameras, have large sensors, and you get pretty big files now. And especially if you were doing something like sports or wildlife, you could end up with many files because you were shooting long streams of frames. Like you're trying to capture some duck flying in the sky. You're going to probably get 100 photos in a few seconds. So it's like you end up with a ton of these files, and they can a lot of them can be pretty big. So you're talking about tens of gigs easily to bring. I mean, even when I do photos of my older equipment, it's still gigabytes of stuff. So you're talking about tens of gigs of stuff to initially go through. Maybe the entire workflow is not very doable on this platform. Maybe only part of the workflow is after you've done some of the picking. I don't know, but the problem is we don't even know how do you get data into this thing besides Wi-Fi. I guess maybe that's the only way.
Did it have a files app on there in the simulator? I think it did, but I don't recall offhand. If it did, then that's their answer, right? Basically, you would put in iCloud.
Yeah, well, that app is
and pay Apple more storage money.
The Files app, yeah. Basically, you have to do something like that. So we'll see. And what I was trying to do was the obvious thing was use a photo picker, which is just so super janky right now. It's kind of and it's probably just how inefficiently I was loading images. I was loading full res images into this thing, which were not huge, like 10 megs or something, or 12 megs. And and it was a little sluggish in the simulator to load it. It'd take a second for it to appear when I was processing it and doing things to it. So definitely I'm not doing a very efficient job with the code right now. And
that honestly makes a lot of sense in what your expectation should be, right? Of handling those files. Traditionally speaking, how would you do that, right? In a Mac app, right? Maybe they generate a preview version, but is that ideal? Is that reasonable to expect? Some kind of pseudo low res based on the viewport?
Well, so in something like Lightroom, you do generate previews, and there's different types of levels of previews, different resolutions of previews. Just like with video editing, you often will have proxies. You do have previews, and that's in order to speed up, the workflow in there.
Right.
And so you can, but I usually generate 1-to-1 previews when I'm starting, and I delete them later so that you can get zoom in the full res. But so it makes sense to have some kind of previews, and the current Lightroom app is actually very good at and they just came up with a new version of their app which unified the whole import process. So you just kind of goes to a screen, you can just see all the photos that are on your phone. You can just import them. It's very simple now to get them in there. I'm not sure where they're storing them. I think they used to just put them in somewhere in the bundle, and then they would upload them to their cloud. So maybe they're still doing that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the file APIs or the photo import APIs in a while. But the experience is very smooth on the iPhone I've been using for the last few weeks. So I imagine that if you can get the files into some kind of cloud storage space that you can then access on the phone through whatever Apple API, Lightroom's using, then you could probably get them in that way. But as I said, maybe that's not the first step in your workflow, depending on what type of photography you might be doing. But if there's an advantage to using Vision Pro as part of your photography workflow, then photographers will work it out, because they've been working out with they've been dealing with the slow file transfer speeds for iPads and the storage limitations for years, and also video editors and audio editors, because there are some people that really like to do certain kinds of things directly on the iPad because of the Apple Pencil support, the direct manipulation, and it's also just really easy to do in certain locales, certain locations. When you're not sitting in front of your desk. So I think professionals and prosumers would figure it out if it's at all possible.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where, I agree. Like, they will pay top dollar if they have the ability to do this in places that they normally wouldn't expect to be able to do it. So
yeah, except for Vision Pro is all about sitting in your living room. So I mean, it's like you could just walk a few feet to your office.
Well, to be fair, like, let's assume, like, I don't know, you're in a safe enough, you feel safe enough to whip that out on a train, and
there you
can
go.
just do that there, or on an airplane, right? You're going to look silly and people are going to take pictures of you, but whatever, you're fine with that. At that point, I don't know. I mean, the point of view that it strikes me as is like this pro app, this pro part of this story is probably one of the more compelling parts.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, the fact that you can have this giant canvas, I feel like might be useful. I want to see what happens when you really like put a high res photo in and can like zoom around. Like, how does it handle it? Because that could be really useful if you can just easily like zoom into a spot and do some manipulations in Photoshop or whatever app you're using, do touch ups. You can see a bunch of photos that you stitch together, and you can see it in like a panoramic thing. Like, I could see some interest use just because you have this large virtual space. You can see some utility.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fascinating to see like what is the instinct from the users to be like hands wavy thingy versus like pinch and drag, and like how well the eye tracking works is really critical to whether or not this is going to be successful.
And we have no way of testing that.
No,
we have no idea. No idea. It's like if you actually have this thing on, like maybe it's very fluid to position windows and stuff just by looking where you want them. Maybe my concern about like trying to programmatically position them is not as big of an issue. Maybe it's very, very fast to move around the interface with this, and you can just like literally look at the photo you want, for instance, and just have it be available with a quick little gesture of your fingers. I don't know. Maybe it's a smoother experience than using a mouse and keyboard. But I won't know until I can try one, and I don't think I'm going to be able to try one anytime soon because, I'm on the East Coast, so Apple doesn't like us over here right now.
Unless you want to travel to the developer lab, sounds like that's the only way you're going to get your hands on one in the next year. Probably.
But I'm not going to Cupertino for the developer lab, and
you can go to London.
Oh, I can go to London. Is that faster or?
That's faster.
Is it faster to go to Cupertino?
Pretty sure it's faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but I think it's kind of interesting. We were just talking about like your challenges. I don't know, Aaron, if you have any particular thing that you were playing around with or trying out.
My thing, I was trying to get stuff with like physics and things like that, and of course, like some of the APIs were broken in the last beta, but it seems like they're working again. But of course, I ran into immediately that none of those things are actually available on the simulator. Like, so the code runs, but then you launch the simulator, it instantly crashes because
what were you trying to do?
Oh, just like a scene reconstruction stuff, so you can build a 3D model of the world and then have stuff interact with it. But of course, that doesn't work without LIDAR and all the other sensors that you have on the device that you don't have on the simulator.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, that is a problem.
So there's an entire class of app that maybe we can't even build until these
pretty much
out,
all the things that are interesting about this platform you can't really do without the hardware.
We were predicting that most of the apps would just be like iPad OS ports stuff with Windows.
Well, that's all you can do with the simulator, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I did manage to get working. I don't know if you have anything else to say about what you were working on, but
no, not too much. Other than I guess there was another weird thing where it seems like you can't launch into an immersive space directly. Where it's like there's an option for it in like the whatever scene manifest in when you're configuring your app, but it lets you like say default to an immersive space, and it even like it'll crash and then it'll say you need to set the app manifest to be an immersive space, and you do it, change that setting, and it still crashes. So it seems like it just won't
maybe it's fixed in beta 6. I don't know.
I haven't got a chance to try beta 6, so maybe they fixed it.
I think it's kind of funny because like a lot of what I've noticed in like Happy Beam and even I think it's Diorama and I think what the other one, Hello World, they all start in the window experience, and like you have to explicitly say press the button to go into immersive mode.
Yeah, I don't know if they mentioned that it wasn't allowed, but it seems like as based on that, I don't know if it's intentional that it's not allowed, because based on the error, it's like you should be able to do it if you change the setting, which I did, but it still seems like it doesn't like it. I don't know.
Well, I will say I did some interesting things in terms of experimenting with getting 3D models in. One of the nice things that I've discovered, and I'm not sure if I really explained it here, was using the object scanning APIs, which basically is more or less another version of Room Plan SDK, but its own like object capture, where Apple gives you not only the framework but also the UI to basically take any object within reasonable size and like walk around it. If you have an iPhone Pro or an iPad Pro so basically an iPhone or an iPad with a LiDAR scanner, and then you can kind of begin to construct via point cloud a 3D model of, let's say, an apple, or in my case, a mutated peach wrapped in saran wrap for some reason.
A mutated peach model.
I mean, that's what I jokingly called it, but it was basically like I was walking around this model, and it was during the time where I didn't quite handle my iPad really correctly. Like you have to like position your phone or your iPad. It's probably easier on the phone, like basically right beside the object, and kind of walk around the object continuously, like, and you would do one scan, you rotate the object. So let's say you want to get the bottom of the object, so you rotate it to its side and you scan it again, and then you rotate it one more time just to make sure you get all the sort of sides that may have been missed the first two passes. And what it's doing is as you're walking around the object, and it's taking pictures dynamically for you. So literally by the time you're done these 3 sessions, and you can give yourself more if you need to, it will give you it'll take about 70 to like 90 some odd pictures, probably in a HEIC format, which allows you to get the depth information, which allows you to also ensure that it's the accurate size and dimension of that said object. And it will construct a 3D model with in this case, if you're doing this through your iPhone or iPad, you're only getting like the lowest res version of this. So even that is quite good. And when I say low res, it means like the poly count is probably low. The mesh feels a little bit. The mesh is the texture. The actual textures look phenomenal.
When you're describing the mesh, that you get out of this? Is it like Nintendo 64, PlayStation 5, somewhere in between?
The thing is, like, the materials themselves are actually really high res. So I would say that would be closer to like PS4, PS5, probably closer to PS4. The actual model itself is probably really janky and sloppy and has what they call very bad topology. But for a static object, that doesn't matter. For a static object, you just want it to be, especially if you're not trying to animate it, you don't want to add like skeletal deformities for which, like a hand or.
I want to see a hand pop out of your mutant Peach. Reach for the user.
My hand. See, now if I did a 3D model and my hand would be able to pick up the peach. But if it, like, you looked at the bottom of the peach, you'd be like, wait a minute, something looks off. So like that's the hilarious part. Is like sometimes it doesn't collect all the information. So like, and to be fair, completely fair, totally my fault. Because I was still trying to figure out how best to scan, like walk around the model to get the best amount of information. And oh, good.
You were saying like, what's the app do you use for this? It's a demo app from Apple.
Yeah, object capture. I think if you search for object capture on the developer app on Apple's developer app, you can find the WWDC video related to that. And from there, there's a link. There should be a link to the sample app. And just make sure you install it on device that has a LIDAR scanner on it. So
right.
iPhone Pro or an iPad Pro.
Cool.
But what I did was it creates a file format called USDZ, which is a zipped version of USD file format, which is an open standard Pixar 3D scene file format. So not just the models, you can construct a model with you can construct an entire scene, cameras, lighting, etc.
Wow.
With the 3D models, and then put that into, and then provide that as an asset for your reality kit content, if you will. That's a whole nother can of worms, if you will, because it's kind of interesting. I've noticed when you do a new project and you say new project and I want a visionOS project and I want to have like volume, I don't know if it's the volume or not, but basically what it does is it creates a window pane, a hello world window pane with like a sphere that will allow you to go into immersion mode if you want to. So it gives you a pathway to immersion mode if you need to have it. But it shows you like a window pane with a sphere in front. Where that sphere comes from is a pre-built Reality Composer Pro file that is put into a package, a local package, that you access from that package. And in there, the Reality Composer Pro file will open up Reality Composer Pro, for which then you can add more objects if you want to, or like lay out your scene or add specific types of particle effects or lightings or behavior interactions, sound effects, etc. And you would save those assets. And those assets come back as I'm not sure if they come back as an entity, but for some reason, like they're basically accessible as objects to access in your project.
Everything's a package.
Yeah, the package. Yeah.
Package-oriented programming.
That should be a thing.
Didn't we talk about that before?
That should have turned.
Yeah, package-oriented programming. So in Reality Composer Pro, like so you make the files, USDZ files, and then you bring them into like Reality Composer.
Yeah.
And then is the output of Reality Composer a USDZ, or is it a package that wraps up assets because you make a whole scene or something?
Yeah, it's a package that wraps it
up.
Is
it a Swift package or some other kind of package? Like a Swift package manager package or something else?
Yeah, it's a Swift package.
Oh, nice.
That creates a library.
Right, okay.
And you can import the library, like usually they generically call it RealityKit content, along with RealityKit. And then you would use the RealityKit view that in Swift UI, and then you would call that model entity, you would call it by its string name. So it's mutated peach. You say mutated peach.
Mutated peach.
And then you just place it and put it in the right position, and or you can just keep it at default position, or just put it in, because it's kind of funny. It's like it doesn't quite define the position. Like if you oh no, it does. Let me rephrase that. It in like traditionally like VStack, you would have like I put a text and an image and a text, and they all stack vertically in a VStack. Imagine that, but instead of like, let's say instead of like the first text, you just have 3D object, like model 3D, and then image, and then text. You see the 3D model first at the top, and then the images at the bottom. But like the 3D model will like protrude out just a little bit more.
Oh, okay, neat.
Yeah,
and
so good.
No, I'm saying, and you've successfully scanned a peach, mutated peach, and put it into a scene. And showed it in Vision OS.
Yeah. It's hilarious. I even scanned Baby Yoda.
Nice, you have a Baby Yoda.
Grogu, yeah.
Is it Grogu?
Grogu, yeah. And tried that. Like I don't know what it was, but it was like this little model that was like there. I don't think it was even a bobble doll or something. But anyway, I just tested it out just to see if I can do it. And at that point I had gotten relatively good about like doing the rotations and the scan. Not too bad. Like I can see it as something that where it's like if you're just trying to put like basic 3D assets into a scene, and I guess in video game kind of metaphors, like as long as it's not you're not going too close at the object, you should be fine. Like it will translate fine.
Cool.
The moment you get too close is when sort of the suspension of disbelief might come into play. But as it is, it's actually quite good, and that's the low res version. If I was to do this on my Mac, or I would take the scans and then generate that on my Mac, I can get higher res versions of that.
Oh, okay. So you could take the data that your phone captures, and you can export it on your Mac somehow.
Yeah, in theory, you should be able to do it. That's not explained, or that's not demonstrated in the demo app.
Oh, well, that was the thing it's like based on the API from last year, or the photogrammetry API. But last year it was only available on Mac OS, and now you can fully do it on device, at least at lower resolutions. So if you just export all the images, then last year they had like a sample command line tool for running that on Mac OS. I played around with it, but without like the fancy UI to help you and show you where to take the pictures, it was pretty hard to get a mutated thing.
Mutated peach.
Yeah. I think I used my water bottle, and it was like really like you could see through it, like it had holes in it.
Oh. So. Did Grogu come out okay? Was it Grogu mutated?
Rotated came out okay. I mean, still mutated in some sense of the word. Like if you were like a real 3D artist, you would have like looked at that with some level of like, okay, guys, you gotta clean that up. But as is, like you could reasonably put it into a 3D scene, in a game scene, and it not like distract too much, because in a way, like let's say it's an environment, right? Generally speaking, if it's a chair or something like that, like you can create 3D scenes that are realistic looking, and as long as nobody gets too close, or if it's relatively static, it doesn't have any physics associated, or it doesn't need to do anything too dramatic, it's quite good. Is it optimized, or is it something you would define as like, oh, this is clear, this is clean in terms of performance? Probably not. You probably need to run it through something like an image optimizer, just to like make sure the textures don't take up too much space. Like run it through like tiny PNG or something like that, some kind of version of that, just to make sure like you save yourself some space, because that's part of the art of game development, is like ways to shave off for performance reasons.
And again, I think that you're in a great position with Vision OS, because it does seem like game development concepts are useful for some aspects of Vision OS development, especially any immersive stuff.
Yes. the people with, and I don't speak of myself because I'm just more amateur than I am like professional, but the people who have the best advantage, are in the best positions to take advantage of this experience are game developers. But the challenge is like, how do I take advantage of the tools? Like, well, I should rephrase that, because game developers have the advantage only in terms of understanding the immersive side of this experience, or the content creation side of like building the 3D assets. When it comes to actually building and developing the 3D scene, they're gonna hate SwiftUI. Just gonna. I mean, there's no way around it. It's not going to be something that they're going to be happy with. They're going to come from Unity, which is very powerful, and then they're going to come down and be like, this is like dumbed down Unity at best. They're just not going to feel it. And I know that that's just not going to be there. They're going to figure out a way to be like, I want to be in Unity full time. I don't want this baby.
There is some kind of support for Unity, right?
There is. Yeah. I think my impression is, though, like you would have to commit to sort of like go into immersion mode? Immersive mode or immersion mode? Anyway, I don't know.
I think they said that you could like run Unity apps like in a volume or whatever alongside of your whatever other window and volume apps. So it doesn't have to be immersive.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. It still has to be within its own space, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think it can interact with the other windows, or you can do things like, apparently you can do drag and drop in visionOS.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to try. That's what I want. Why I wanted two windows. I saw that I saw that on X. I think I saw it on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to sort of explore, even in just as maybe even drag a 3D object, drag a Roku, and then stick it into the window, and then see if you can create, like, let's say you just create a screenshot of Roku and then slap it into the window and just making 2D or vice versa.
Yeah.
That would be kind of interesting.
Well, on the game developer concept here, didn't you also say before we started recording that you were doing something with custom shaders?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how relevant it is to this, but I was apparently with iOS 17, they allow you to create these shader views, or no, I'm sorry, shader modifiers, distortion effects. I'll send you the link so you can post it on our in our note. But like, and then you can do custom shaders. And so one of the things that I was playing around with was creating a metal shader, or really stealing metal shader from a sample code that I got somewhere. But basically, to mimic the iPhone AirDrop like animation where you like warps the screen, the full screen. When I put my phone next to your phone and I'm
the really cool effect.
Yeah. I got that to work.
Oh
wow. And it's a little bit performance heavy. It's like really slow and really janky. But the point being is like you can now theoretically warp a lot of the, like, say your view or your, I think you're gonna have to trick it to like basically make some kind of screenshot before you do the warping effect. But in theory, you can do really crazy visual effects on your SwiftUI view.
Wow, with a metal shader.
Yeah.
Like so that's really impressive.
Like, so you can go on Shader Toy or something like that, and maybe
I don't know which Shader Toy is that a website.
Shader Toy is a website that gives you sample that provides like a whole sampling of GSL shaders, like all different varieties and examples, and they actually give you the code to it. To be fair, you still need to like redo it in a metal shader style, and their global parameters are not quite the same as what is in the metal shader. Still learning it, still trying to get better at figuring out how to do that. But it's fascinating to me to be able to like pull off some really crazy effects that go way beyond just basic. I can't call them basic, but like just obviously like shape morphing between SwiftUI views or these. We can already do a lot with just SwiftUI views, but I find it funny and interesting that we can do even more that's absurd, whether it be like doing ripple effects or or just doing particle effects that are like just shader specific, that are driven by like maybe you moving up or down and that kind of thing. Like in theory you could do that in like SpriteKit view or something like that, but there's much more of an interesting level of control and maybe even performance benefits just having that running through a metal shader. So and then in theory, and hopefully this is true, one of the reasons why Apple provided this in the first place was to allow for really trippy experiences that we can actually do in 3D on visionOS. Like now, instead of just having that weird, just basic morph in 2D, right? The airdrop morph. Imagine that in 3D, right? It kind of warps the entire window.
Sounds like some hot shader action.
That's hot shader action, I tell you. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, you always got to read the tea leaves a little bit whenever these new features. And this is, you said, iOS 17 really specific?
Yes, iOS 17 specific. It's very.
I don't even remember this being mentioned anywhere. Was it mentioned in a video or something?
I feel like it's one of those advanced talks. I mean, you'd have to like literally go into like metal shader, like one of those metal shader talks. Yeah. I think that's really where you in theory only find that kind of talk, to be honest, because it is very specific to that experience. But yeah, you can do a lot of interesting layered effects. I mean, to be fair, like this is basically like, I would say like more like a modern day like core image filters or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, that's cool because they're a pain.
Yeah. So like a simple example is creating like very interesting transitions for our app, where maybe you might desaturate something real quick and then maybe a ghostly fade to black or something like that.
Yeah.
Then maybe you can technically do like, maybe you have one that you're like not happy with. You want it more like a funky style of transition. You might consider adding just a little bit of a shader to just like add that little bit of magic.
Yeah, I wonder if you can apply this to a visionOS scene, especially if you're in an immersive scene. I mean, maybe you could use it as a way to apply some kinds of special effects. So, like, you could use it like I imagine, being able to make videos, maybe make movies, and this could be one other way of adding certain kinds of special effects. Remember those apps from years ago where it was like a special effects app, and you could basically you take a picture or video or something, and it would put in some kind of action movie scene or whatever in the middle of your video, like that kind of. What I'm saying is, like maybe you can use this as part of doing something like that, where it's like I want to create I want to bring back a reboot of Sliders as a visionOS movie experience. And I want the wormhole to be up to date with, and somebody use some shaders to make a cool wormhole effect. You know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking. And then if you're using your iPhone version of the app, then you could maybe still get a wormhole. I don't know how it would be useful, but you could.
I thought that was like a feature that they added, that you allowed to punch a hole.
Yes.
In the virtual space.
I want the specific shader though of like an updated version, a high res version from the TV show.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But the whole, and then you could use it to make the wormholes, so we can do our like what were we doing, our Jira or our
Jira,
our really
airplane,
a paper airplane, a really slow real time messaging through a portal. The opposite of the Portal game. It'll just takes real time.
Was it a pigeon or was it an airplane?
It's an owl. It was an paper airplane. And then I was like, you can do it like Hogwarts, where the owls, but it'll be real time.
We can have like live activity on your phone. So, like,
just tracking the message, go into your friend.
The message, and then finally when it's like,
you could buy in-app purchases to get faster birds. So you can get messages faster. Get up to an airplane. Get up to a rocket.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It could actually work.
It's so stupid. It's a bad app idea.
It is a very bad app idea.
Nice.
But what's hilarious is like I feel like that's one that people would actually be on board with.
Portal pigeons, we'll call it.
Portal pigeons. There you go. PP.
Yep. It's just the marketing writes itself.
I agree.
Send
horrible.
messages to your friend by a virtual pigeon in real time.
TPP.
Yep.
Oh man. Time to pigeon. Yes, I said time. Oh, okay, no, never mind.
It's
Sorry,
time to pee. Time to
Time to pee.
Yes,
TTP.
TTP. Right. Yes, that is watch Mythic Quest. I think it might have been season 1. It was season 1 or season 2, and they have that season 1. That was a very funny episode.
Apparently, the jokes don't necessarily write themselves because they might write themselves, but they're not always good jokes. So apologies for that.
But it's a good bad app idea. So I think it's time for us to wrap things up. Do we have any not a sponsor segment today? Do we have a not a sponsor? Let's make the one more thing a not a sponsor. But for now, let's conclude for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is, and share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. Today's not a sponsor is, I want to say Clipfish, but maybe we want to try something different. Maybe we want to try something by Russ. Maybe you want to try Happy. I'm looking it up. Happy Scale. Happy Scale. Thank you. Happy Scale. We're really prepared today. We are really prepared. Like phenomenally prepared. Happy Scale, which is actually an app that I use. Help me out. What is Happy Scale, Steve? Happy Scale is a weight tracking app that is very friendly and gives you multiple ways to like track to calculate when you're gonna reach your goals. Like it has multiple algorithms in there, so it can visualize your progress in some different ways. And I found it very useful to see how stagnant I am in my weight loss journey. But I can go back in time and see when I was rapidly losing weight, and then get some motivation to keep going with my my current exercise and diet plan. But it smooths out. The thing about it is really cool is that it smooths out your like daily weights, because your regular weights, your body weight will go up and down, day to day, but it smooths it out on the graph so you can see the progress and without getting distracted by like all the peaking up and down. So it's a really nice visualization. That's right. They have an iPhone and an iPad version. This was developed by, apparently, Russ has a company name, Front Pocket Software LLC. Oh, very nice. And we know Russ, this is not just somebody that had built it for, leaps and giggles. I mean, this guy uses this app as his daily app, and it was a way for him to help with his weight. So shout out to you. Yeah, I've been using it for years myself to watch me go up and down the weights, and and I feel like I need to take this app and use it for myself. So I think I will download it now. But I recommend it because we love Russ and we want to let more people know about his great app. Indeed. So
that is it. So till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always. What is the penalty?
I don't know. The Apple stormtroopers come and take all of your iPhones.